other for who we are.
And like a family, we treat each other equally.
Actually, PWU gave us a home and helped us to be a patriot in society.
We may have different individual drums and instruments,
but we march to the same beat together as one united community.
Do you want to march with our community of patriots?
I am a patriot.
I am a patriot.
I am a patriot.
I am a patriot.
Recording in progress.
Let us pause for a few minutes as we welcome the grace of our Lord. Almighty Father, we praise and thank you for this day. We come to you at this hour, asking for your blessing and help as we gather virtually. We pray for your guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our activities with love and compassion as you taught us to be. Help us be mindful of others and especially of ourselves. Please grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We ask all these in your name. Amen. Okay, good morning, everyone, and happy Valentine's. To all the students, faculty, those who are in love, about to fall in love, heartbroken, NBSB, NGSB, and all those participants whose Facebook status is complicated or single, welcome. Today's Hearts Month program, entitled Unbreak My Heart, will be the beginning of the end, meaning you will be enlightened with the science of love and heartbreak. But before we start, a simple reminder. Please keep your microphones on mute, but we want to see your glowing faces. So please turn on your cameras. So can I see you? Please turn on your camera so we can see your beautiful and handsome faces. There you go. So pretty, diba? Okay, so let us start this program with a welcome remark from our university president, Mr. Marco Alfredo Benitez.
Dr. Felina Young, University Chancellor and SVPAA, Dr. Susie Benitez, AVP for Campus Life, Dr. Shirley Padua, Dean of our School of Education, both co-chairs of our University Month activities, members of the Management Committee, university administrators, faculty, dear students and guests watching on our social media pages, good morning and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. The month of February has traditionally been celebrated as PW Hearts Month, with a capital A, because not only is this the month when we celebrate Valentine's Day, but also because February has been proclaimed as Arts Month by virtue of Presidential Proclamation number 683 of 1991. February is also celebrated as our University Month when we have our President's Convocation, commemorating the birthday of the university's first chairman of the board, Jose Abad Santos, who was born on February 19, 1886. The President's Convocation will occur on February 24, while our School of Fine Arts and Design, in celebration of Hearts Month, has also lined up several activities for SFAD Week from February 21 to 24, focusing on various art-related activities, artistic celebrations, as well as creative coping strategies for the new normal. Today, we kick off the first of a week-long series of student events, this time organized by the PWU Center for Culture, Arts, Music, and Sports under the Office of Campus Life and the School of Education, designed to give students a welcome break from the academic requirements of the second term and provide a learning opportunity to help students be mindful of their physical, emotional, and mental health in spite of the current situation. Today's event, entitled Unbreak My Heart, will be a discussion on the science of love and heartbreak, a topic I'm sure we can all relate to, especially this Valentine's Day. On February 17, Hip Hop Hooray will allow students to express their feelings through a dance workshop. This will be followed on February 18 by Basketball Basics, a virtual basketball mini camp with our very own Patriots basketball team, open for athletes and non-athletes alike, designed to help enhance one's self-esteem and confidence through physical activity. Finally, on the 19th, in partnership with the Bayanihan National Folk Dance Company of the Philippines, we have Teaching and Touching Lives, which is a project already on its 26th year, a dance workshop designed to build confidence, self-esteem, and help participants make the right choices both on and off the stage. You will notice that apart from today's activity, the remaining 3 events will involve a lot of movement and physical activity, because as we've all experienced during this pandemic, the lack of physical activity, being cooped up in our homes during the lockdowns, and exclusively attending classes and meetings in front of our screens have had negative effects on our physical and emotional well-being. I therefore would like to thank the Office of Campus Life and the School of Education, the organizers, speakers, and moderators of this series of events. I hope that our students will make the most of this opportunity and actively participate in these offerings. And of course, as we are starting our limited face-to-face classes for nursing and medical technology today, I look forward to welcoming our students to more in-person events in the future. Thank you very much and good morning to everyone, and may you all have a very fruitful session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marco Benitez. That was a very inspiring remark and exciting. So we have a lot of activities this coming months, and please don't forget to register. I think your professors sent you already a way to register through your portal, and we hope to see you there. So before I introduce our first speaker, I would just like to remind you to please put your microphones on mute, turn on your cameras. And if you have questions during the program, please type them in the chat box and we will try to answer them after the 2 speakers are done. Okay, so our first speaker is one of the most engaging and supportive educators of PWU. She thrives to help students learn more and excel in their crafts. She will literally and figuratively brighten your day. She had been the program coordinator for languages and humanities and chair for Bachelor of Arts in Communication and Media Studies at the College of Arts and Sciences in San Beda College, Alabama. She had been the principal for the Integrated Basic Education Department of the same school. So let us welcome the Dean of the School of Education, also known as the Dancing Dean, Dr. Shirley Padua.
Okay. Good morning! Good morning and peace be with you. Maligayang araw ng puso Happy Valentine's Day. Am I clear? Is my sound okay? Am I clear?
Yes,
Okay.
team.
Okay, so thank you so much. Good morning, and peace be with you. So today, let us engage ourselves. Yeah, what a way to celebrate our Valentine's is with our PWU community. Is that we've been here for 102, 103 now, and this the love that the seven founders had handed from generation to generation is still being felt up to now, and for sure for so many years, even though we're not here anymore. So PWU's legacy would continue, the love for learning would continue, and we continue every day despite all of these challenges that we face right now. So thank you, teacher Petra, for always say there's always that follow up that I'm always the dancing dean. So I have to be true to that. Consider it an award already. So, Sir Bob, this topic now is unbreaking our heart. And but before that, before I do my talk, I would like each one to please, if you could turn on your camera and let us do a little flexing of muscles, and and we're going to dance a little bit. So very two steps only. It's very easy. So okay, everybody. So whatever, left or right, whatever you like to start with, that's okay. So you do it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Another 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's give like, yeah, that's very good, Dr. Elepaño. Okay, 1.0. Teacher Mariel, also 1.0. And all the rest, you're all getting good grade from me. Okay, you're not yet enrolled, but you already have a grade. Okay, so Sir Bob. Okay, so physical education time, and we've got to flex our muscles. Okay, so okay, Sir Bob, maestro, our music please. Okay, ready, boys and girls?
Can't you see I love you? Please don't break my heart. That's what hard to do. 'Cause
I don't
have
have a wooden heart. Okay, back to 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, and 4.
I know that I will cry.
Maybe I would. You can sing along if you know the song.
I don't have
a wooden heart.
There's no strings upon
Okay, go. You're doing it good.
mine. It was always you from the start.
Okay, again.
Me
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the heart sign.
I'm not made of wood, and
'Cause I don't have a wooden heart. Okay, thank you, Sir Bob, maestro. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so that concludes my talk. Okay, I haven't started yet. Okay, so thank you. So at least that, I hope that really perks up a little. Okay, let me share with you now. Okay, the song Wooden Heart. Okay, if you know I always would say the version would be the Pusong Bato, if you know the song. So sometimes in love, we give it all, but of course, love is not a bed of roses. There will be something. Sir Leo is already smiling. Okay, he could already relate with that. So that means that there would be a lot of rough road, a lot of nice things that you would feel, but that's really love. Sometimes it makes our heart wooden, but love would also soften our heart. So let me share this one with you. Okay, one moment. Okay. Point already?
Yes, Kim.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, I have entitled it Game Over or Loading. So sometimes in love, we cannot do anything, even though we would like to continue it, but there would be some things that would happen. So we say, okay, that's game over. But even though it's game over, then there will be a new love that would blossom again. So that is again loading this time. Okay. I would like to share with you because I'm really fond of Disney ever since I was a young girl, always a young at heart. I think we should all be like that. Is that there are so many Disney characters who really are broken-hearted. So let me share this one with you. And though they're Disney characters, let us learn from them. Okay. Okay, is I you can still see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you just choose who are you in these Disney characters that we have here. Okay, so we said game over. So many broken-hearted Disney characters. Okay, are you, do you remember Pocahontas? How many here have watched Pocahontas? Uh, Teacher Petra, I'm sure you have watched this one. Pocahontas is a true story, but you know they met Pocahontas and John Smith. They met each other in an unfortunate event, but they fell in love. But you know, to cut the long story short, you already know the story about this one. John Smith left Pocahontas. It was a beautiful love story, but John Smith has to go home, no? Has to go back to England. And Pocahontas, that is her place. It's her heritage. So even though they have painted all the colors of the wind, still those colors would fade. So it's love. There could be something going on, very good, but along the way, something not so good would happen. Okay, another character, Hercules. I'm pretty sure that you have watched Hercules. You know, Meg really loves Hercules so much, but Meg still, and because of that love, Meg dies for Hercules. So I would not be telling all the whole story, but because you only have like 30 minutes. So Meg really loves Hercules. And Hercules in after that, of course, he was really brokenhearted. Imagine that your loved one would die for you. Okay, this is very close to my heart. It's the Hunchback of Notre Dame. You know the love triangle thing, and Quasimodo would never have Esmeralda. Esmeralda really loved Quasimodo, and Quasimodo would do everything for Esmeralda. But you know, Esmeralda only sees Quasimodo as a BFF, as best friend forever. This is what our young kids would say, na friend zone. But still, Quasimodo would offer his love, and they still are good friends. Okay, Peter Pan. Okay, Peter Pan. This is really very good. So we know the story of Peter Pan. Wendy has to live since Peter Pan's world is different from hers. So, like you can see here in the picture, Peter Pan said, "Okay, you just say no, and I'm going to release you." So actually, that's a love triangle again because Tinkerbell really loves Peter Pan, and but Wendy has to stay, and Wendy has to grow up. Wendy could not be in Neverland forever. It's not all happiness. She has to do everything and grow up and experience being an adult. Okay, so those things. So they were all brokenhearted, but they were able, no, these Disney characters were able to move on to another chapter in the story. I would like to share with you that there are red flags. There are red flags in love. And these are warnings. But because most of us, if we're in love, we're blinded. No? So like what Shakespeare said, we're like potatoes, that love is blind. No? Of course, potatoes, they don't have eyes. So because of that, we are so in love that we are blinded by our love that we cannot see these red flags anymore. We cannot see these warning signs anymore. So let us discuss now about these red flags. And if we see this one, that is really a sign for us that we really have to do something. We have to stop it, or we have to consult, no, other people. Okay, you know the story of Snow White. Everybody knows the story of Snow White. Snow White just sang one song with a random prince. So that prince showed up in her backyard, and Snow White decided, okay, he is the one already for me. Only one song with a random prince, and the prince only showed up once. So what is the implication of this one? Healthy relationships are based on building up trust and respect. And this will take some time. It's not just you just sing a song, or your goo eyes and it's love at first sight. He or she will already be my partner in life. But it needs, no, it needs a lot of building up. It needs a lot of trust. It needs a lot of respect. And that is not only a one-time big time. It really takes a lot of time, especially my dear
Recording
young
stopped.
people here. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Next one. You all know Cinderella, another favorite. Cinderella meets the prince again only once, just like Snow White. Cinderella danced with the prince only once again, and then decides to get married to him when he finds her again. Again, what is the implication of this in our own life, no? Especially to our young people? No? So we're here to just give you some reminders on how to go along with your love, no, on the process. You know, my dear young people, you cannot know whether someone will be a healthy or trustworthy partner after only hanging out with them only once. No? So you hang out with them. Okay, you had a party with this boy or with this girl, and okay, she's the one already. He's the one already. It takes time, no? And that cannot be a healthy. How would you know that your partner will be trustworthy if you only hang out with your partner only once, and then you say, oh, this is already the love of my life, I'm going to marry him or I'm going to marry her? So it's not it. No? It might be you are really so much immersed on what you think is love for this guy or for this girl, but after all, later on, you really have to find out if this partner is really the one for you. Okay, you know the story of Ariel. Ariel wants to know what life is like on dry land. We know that Ariel is a mermaid. So he was thinking, what is it to be in dry land where humans live? These humans, they're so happy. They have feet, they could walk and they could dance and they could run. So, and then she found out about this Eric. Unfortunately, her relationship with Eric is full of unhealthy ideals. Ariel never says a single word to Eric because she's a mermaid, she cannot talk, before deciding that it's worth giving up her mermaid heritage and her family to be with him. You know the story that Ariel left her heritage, the mermaid kingdom, and she left her family just to be with Eric. There's really, my dear young people, there's really nothing wrong loving someone you haven't spoken with before. But it's definitely not healthy to give up your life and your family just for that someone you haven't spoken with before. So imagine you are going to throw all your heritage and your family for a boy or a guy or a girl or a lady that you have only spoken, that you haven't even spoken before. So that can be crazy, but love is crazy, so we might do that. So even though Eric is a charming prince, we know it's common for unhealthy, okay, remember this, it's common for unhealthy and abusive partners to pressure their partners into moving away from their support systems for them. And abuse can thrive in isolation. So, for example, your boyfriend or your girlfriend would tell you, okay, you come and live with me so that it's just the two of us. You leave your family. We will have a good life. And of course, we're so much in love, we're blinded by love. Then we would really accede or acquiesce to what our boyfriend or what our girlfriend had suggested. But you never know. You can never tell. Would this partner be a good one? That this partner might be an abusive partner. And if you are being abused already, there is no support group from your family because you're left your family. So that is really something to think about. There's also the issue around Ariel and Eric bonding with each other, even though Ariel has no voice. Remember, she is a mermaid. Okay. The voice here is something that is symbolic. So sometimes abusive partner, the one who is abused, has no voice, could not even speak out of the abuses. And this is very, very bad. There must always be communication in a relationship. It takes two to tango, as what we say. There must always be that give and take. And communication is very, very important. If you cannot communicate with your partner or with your love interest, then how would you be able to express your own feelings or your own sentiments or your own things that you would really like to express? Because remember here, Ariel the mermaid has no voice. So as I said, that is something that is symbolic. We must always voice out, communicate. And we all know that communication is a very, very important ingredient in any relationship. So to build a healthy relationship with someone is based on supportive and open communication. Something that we are very, very comfortable in expressing ourselves. And if that is, you can express yourselves, I think that would start a healthy relationship. Okay, next, Belle. Belle, I think of all Disney characters, she's the brainy one. She's smart because she read books a lot. She's really a bookworm. She reads, so that means that she's really getting all the insights of the things from what she's reading. But Belle's relationship with the Beast has a serious, unhealthy, and abusive themes. What I'm saying that even though we're smart or we fall in love, then sometimes we forget all us being smart or being intelligent. Okay, Beast imprisons Belle when she first stumbles onto his castle. Holding someone against your will, like that, is definitely abusive, and that is really a controlling behavior. Beast and Belle, they don't get along at all in the beginning. And Beast even yells at her. We know that yelling and screaming at a partner are emotionally abusive behaviors. Yes, we may yell sometimes, we may scream at times, but always yelling and screaming at your partner, that is something that is emotionally abusive. Every day, somebody would yell at you. somebody would scream at you, even us, no, in our classroom. If a teacher would yell at you or scream at you, of course, that would really make us really downtrodden. Then there's the whole issue surrounding Beast, no? Progressively becoming more kind. So the Beast is now being kind to Belle, and he starts to realize, Belle now starts to realize, okay, he's not a beast after all. He's now starting to care for me, and he's becoming nice. Perhaps no, he's really nice and he's really caring, and I could love him. But you know what? This is also problematic. Since we know that we cannot change people overnight, we can change someone. It should be the person, his own or her own volition, that he or she should change. It should come from the person, not from anybody else. So no matter how nice or understanding we are towards them, it should always be the person himself or herself who should start changing. We cannot change again. We cannot change people overnight. Abusers won't change if we show them enough kindness. And it's unhealthy to think that we can change a partner this way. So some themes, no, of this story could be something really to think about and to ponder on. Okay, Jasmine. Okay, remember the song A Whole New World? So this is Jasmine's story. Jasmine is very vocal about not wanting to be seen as just a prize and possession for her future husband. So Jasmine is we can say, the empowered woman. So, okay, I will not just be a possession of my future husband. I will not just be a trophy wife. So that's what she said. But Jasmine's pretty progressive in that regard, as I said, empowered. But unfortunately, her relationship with Aladdin also has some clear issues. Though throughout most of the movie, Aladdin has disguised himself as a prince. Remember, he's not really a prince. So that he can meet with Jasmine. And Jasmine remains unaware of his true background. So first, that is already deception. There is already lying. So Aladdin is a fake news. So he's fake. We know that this is really unhealthy if the foundation starts with lies and deceptions. Since we all know it is never okay to lie. And because of lying, you manipulate your partner now into believing that you are someone that you are really not. So we must be wary of that. Is this guy really this? So, we must really do a lot of background checking. When I was a young girl, I grew up with my grandmother. My grandmother would really interview all those boys, all those guys who would really come to our house. And to the point of even asking people if you know this boy or this guy. And I was still young then, and some of these guys would not come back anymore because they were really so afraid of my grandmother. At first, I said, okay, so I would not have a boyfriend anymore if my grandma's like this. But I think it helped because was able to filter out who's really true and who's really not. So healthy relationships, my dear young people, they're based on trust and being open here. Because as we always say, honesty is the best policy. Honesty is the only policy. So if you feel like you can't be your true self around your partner, then this might be a sign that this relationship is not for you because you cannot be yourself. Remember, it is so difficult really not to be yourself. You can fake people some of the time, but you cannot fake people all the time, and you cannot also fake yourself. Your true self would always come out. Okay, a lot of Disney movies, sorry. A lot of Disney movies have a theme of "you're not my type." but you will become my type. This can be an issue since we are never obligated to stick with someone to see if they'll change or become better. And doing so can really be unhealthy. So sometimes we're okay, oh, I've read this book. I have, and I'm so in love. You know, the happily ever after thing. Okay, that may be true sometimes in stories, but not in real life. This is real life already that we are talking about. So now, because yes, love, if we fall in love, there is always be sometimes consonants with you will have a broken heart. I have broken my heart for so many times, and I'm pretty sure though that teacher Mariel and teacher Sir Leo, teacher Petra, and all the professors here, who we are a bit older than you are, maybe not even a bit. Okay, so we have undergone all these things and maybe still undergoing up to now. So how to deal with broken heart? Okay, I would just like to share this, and also from my own experience and from the experiences of my friends, and also born out of readings. First, we must really accept the heartache. It really aches if you have a broken heart. It's not easy as if though it's the end of the world, but you must accept that. But there are some people, they could not easily accept. Like according to research, in statistics, there will always be guys who would really commit suicide compared to ladies. Why? Okay, they found out that guys would not really talk much. Unlike the ladies who would really call up a girlfriend and say, my boyfriend, for 7 years. I've known somebody who said that to me, and he just left me just like that. He just left me for another girl. He's thrown the 7 years. So because as ladies, we could accept. We really call a friend. So we would always do that. But according to this research that I read, is that guys would not be like that. They would just drink with their friends, and then, but guys won't talk. I don't know if they're accepting the heartache or not, but one good reminder is that we've got to accept. There's really heartache. It really aches. We've got to accept that. And because of heartaches, there are so many negative thoughts, so many things that would come into our mind. We have to deal with our negative thoughts. Of course, all of these things are easier said than that, but just the same, we've got really to do our fair share, or else we will really go crazy with our broken heart. Deal with negative thoughts. So is this really the right thing to do? You talk to yourself. No? There's a self-talk. And I do not eat now. I do not dress well now. I always miss classes now. And I have good grades before. I'm a scholar, but now because of this, my grades are failing. So you've got to psyche yourself, get out from yourself, and look at yourself as if though you're another person. So you deal with negative thoughts. But of course, you accept there's really an ache. Do not avoid the pain, because yes, according to research, guys would avoid pain and just forget about that. Another thing they said is you've got to forgive yourself. Sometimes we say, why did I say yes to this guy? Why did I concede? Why did I accept all of these things that he said? And you cannot forgive yourself. So forgive yourself. And the other one is, if you have forgiven yourself, forgive him or forgive her already. Because if you cannot forgive yourself if you have not forgiven the one who really did that terrible heartache on you. So forgiveness. Even the Lord said we can only accept things if there will be forgiveness. Even though sometimes they would not even ask forgiveness from us, but in ourselves, no, for our peace of mind, then forgiveness is really very, very crucial. And take time to heal. It takes time. Take it one day at a time. I remember, some students would always come to me. There's this young girl. She's now, I think she has graduated already, and up to now we're still very close. And she said that, would this really heal? When would this heal? And she was asking me when. So I cannot say when. So don't say, okay, tomorrow I'm healed already. Tomorrow I'm okay. I will go to the salon and cut my hair, and then I'm going to eat food that I like, and that's okay already. It's not that, but some people really are doing that. So we do not know, but we just take it one day at a time. As we always say, the proverbial time always heals. And very important, okay, I am guilty of this before. We've got to end the connection already. But that's natural. After a broken heart, you will still text. You will still text your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or you will still call him up, and you are the one asking, oh, okay, can we go back and continue? So because all the steps 1 to 5 will not materialize if we will not end the connection. So end the connection. It's so difficult to end the connection, but we've got to do it. And very important, don't sulk in your room and, okay, I will end my life now. Okay, goodbye world. So go out. No? It's a beautiful world out there. Even though with all of these things, even though there are crises happening, it is still a beautiful world. You take our word for that, my dear young people, and see the world. Because if you're going to see the world, you're going to see other people, and you might even meet really the one that is for you. And very important, share what you feel to a trusted person. I always tell young people, please see somebody who's older than you are. Because if you're going to see somebody who's the same age as yours, then that might really be not good, because you have the same line of thinking. So if you cannot tell that, sometimes they cannot tell their parents. So you can go to your favorite aunt, or you can go to your favorite uncle, or you can go to a professor that you are very comfortable with, or you can go to our guidance counselor. So detox, and very important, time out first in social media. Sometimes you cannot help it, and then you shout to the whole world, this is what you are feeling right now, or you are going to stalk your former boyfriend or your former girlfriend, your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend. You're going to stalk, and you will see now, oh, how come she already has a new one, and he already has a new one, and I'm still here, and I'm still sulking, and I'm still crying. So time out, detox yourself. The more that you would wallow in pity, the more that you would really feel, I am so alone, I am so helpless, I am very sad. So now you're telling all the negativities already. Maybe because I'm not a good person, or I'm not a good girlfriend, or not a good boyfriend. So you persecute yourself this time. So detox yourself. Time out in your Facebook, in your what else? In your Instagram, in your Twitter. Sometimes you would even tweet how you feel. So time out for all of this thing, because it is really very important. Self-care. Take care of yourself. Take good care of your heart. Let's all take good care of our heart. We only have one heart, and we've got to take care of it. We only have one life, and we've got to enjoy it. And very important, I think, is we pray. And pray more, and pray a lot. Pray ceasingly. I believe this. If we really invoke and many of us believed it, we really invoke the Holy Spirit. I think that would really clear our mind and will clear our heart. And it's time to go on, because there's a big life, there's a beautiful life out there. Okay, if there are Disney characters who are broken-hearted, I think these Disney characters ended up. This is the happily ever after. They ended up with a beautiful love story. This is my favorite, my very, very favorite up. I know that some of you have watched this. If not, then I think you'd really better watch this one. The Ellie and Ellie and Carl love story. So remember this one? Okay, you can see this picture. They were really childhood sweethearts. So, and they grew up together. So that's a saying that you come to know. You have to know. It's a long process before you would be able to know really the person. Sometimes you already married the person and you found out, he's not like this. I thought she's like this. So this is a beautiful love story of Ellie and Carl. So you could see that until such a time that they got married and they build their family. Although they're childless, they still love each other because we marry for love. That's one thing. We marry for love until the old age, until Carl was already left alone because Ellie died ahead of Carl. So this is one beautiful love story. If you haven't watched this, I really suggest you really have to watch this one. And Frozen. Okay, you all know Frozen, of course. No? Elsa. Elsa never really had a real man for herself, but she found love in herself and in others. And if I may add, and we also should find love in God. So look, it's not for you to be happy. You really sometimes some people, or you don't need another person to make you happy. Like Elsa, never had the real man for herself, but at the end of the movie, she found love in her family, in herself. Of course, there's a battle, but there's a battle in her. But she found love and she emerged victorious. That's why I remember the song, let it go, let it go. I'm one with the wind and sky. Let it go, let it go. So let go of the heartaches. And after a while, we could really say, thank you for the broken heart. Because of our broken heart, it made us a whole person. We need to be broken in order to become a beautiful person. So, my dear young people, as what Violeta Parra said, don't cry when the sun is gone, because the tears won't let you see the stars, and the stars are beautiful. And don't be afraid to start over. This time, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. And as we always say, experience is the best teacher. That's why in our School of Education, it's something that is really more meaningful through experiential learning. And this is experiential learning. If you have a broken heart, we have to learn from it and learn more and learn the most. And very important, let's all remember, only God can heal a broken heart. But you need to give him all the pieces. You have to lift up. We have to lift up everything to God. Don't leave even just a piece. Because if you leave one, then it does not really heal at all. And very important, you keep the faith. Trust in the Lord. As we always say, tiwala lang, laban lang. So, and I always have a sticky note also to myself, and always tell yourself, I love you. Can you please tell it to yourself now? Okay, I will not hear you, but please tell yourself, that's all. Say it at the same time. I love myself. So in the the morning, you look at the mirror, of course, after praying, you wake up and look at the mirror and tell that one in front of the mirror that, you know, beautiful person, I love you. We cannot love other people if we will not have the capacity to love ourselves. So say we cannot give what we do not have. If we do not love ourselves, then how can we love other people in return? And that's it. Happy Valentine's Day. Maligayang araw ng mga puso. I know that this is just a short thing. So, but just the same, being brokenhearted will not really break us. As we always say, break a leg. So we say, unbreak that heart for us to become whole again. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so
Padua.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for that interesting
yes.
and different perspective of Disney princesses. You actually
Okay.
ruined my childhood dream of becoming a Disney princess. Although there's Elsa, I could be Elsa. I wanted to be Belle, but now I would probably be Elsa.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, okay, we will
Yes.
sing at the same time. Let it snow.
Oh, next. Let us. Thank you, Dean.
Okay, thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
I think everyone was able to relate with her presentation. Now, our next speaker, our second speaker, is someone I know very well. So if you want to know why, just check our last names. So our speaker, okay, he's a lover of truth, education, family relations, food, and of course, life. He is a consultant liaison psychiatrist at the Medical City. He also teaches in Ateneo School of Medicine. He is a director and a consultant to different mental health care organizations, and of course, our full-time family doctor. So let us welcome Dr. Ronaldo Elepaño III.
Thank you very much, Pet. Thank you for inviting me to speak to your wonderful university. I have been guested a couple of times for some of you who were able to catch me in previous stints. I was also part of a guest faculty with Institute of Family Life Sciences. So thank you again for always having me. Suki na ako sa Philippine Women's University, and I've always have a soft spot for Philippine Women's University. I just want to talk about today and not necessarily bore you because we're talking about science, and alam ko hindi lahat who is attending is part of a science course, and I'd like it to be more digestible for everyone. The title of my talk is Unbreak My Heart, the Science of Love and Heartbreak. Why am I talking about it? For one, I'm a psychiatrist, and for those who are unaware, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who specializes in the mental state, in the mind. We have skill set of prescribing medications and doing psychotherapy. I do see a lot of clients who I do a lot of psychotherapy work with. I also do couples counseling. So that's one of the reasons why talking about love and heartbreak is very close to me. So I have no conflicts of interest for this lecture. But what will we talk about today? Just going through some of the basics of a science lecture, we have to define the terms. So how do we define love? What is the science of love? And I'd like to present a model that I usually like whenever I present any concept. And usually I talk about it from a biopsychosocial model. So I'd like to talk about love from a biological standpoint, from a psychosocial standpoint, because whenever we see clients or I see patients, I approach them from a biopsychosocial approach. So what are the biological aspects of their concerns, their problems, and what are the psychosocial domains of that problem? And I try to create a plan that addresses all that. What then is the health benefits of love, and how do we mend a broken heart? I know Dean Padua has talked about it, and I just like to highlight a couple of points. And how do we improve our capacity to love? I'd like to say, when we talk about defining love, until now, even experts still has yet to decide a comprehensive definition of how we define love. And of course, by virtue of our discussion, we will define it on certain levels. So I'm not assuming that what we're going to the definition that I'm going to give you will be applicable for all aspects of your life, but generally a good opportunity to appreciate love in the context of understanding it better. And I like to say, this is so true until now, that they say love is blind. I still like to say that, for those who still are able to revisit a slum book, they say that defining love is, love is like a rosary which is full of mystery. And I think Dean Padua appreciates that also. And I, of course, from educator standpoint, we'd like to have better references on how we define certain terms that we use on a day-to-day basis. And I'd like to use Oxford dictionary, and I mean, Oxford is one of my go-to references when I'd like to define things. So love is defined as a strong feeling of affection, a great interest and pleasure in something. So a strong feeling is, I love you, I love something. Great interest and pleasure is, I love to eat, I love to watch this movie, I love buying, Or you can use love in the context of a person or the person that you love. So you can call him, hey, love, loves. Yeah. And for those who are playing tennis, love can be considered as a score of 0. So wag ko kayong mag-alala kung tong Valentine's 0 kayo, equivalent pa rin ho yun sa love. Okay. And one of my favorite psychiatrists who, dearly departed psychiatrist, is M. Scott Peck. And I love how he defines love, that he says it's the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Now, take that into consideration and let that somehow marinate in your minds. What does it mean? There is a transformative nature to love, believe it or not. Whether it's intended or unintended, you change. And I think that's such a wonderful thing that we all go through in life when we are loving. And I'm talking about love on various levels, hindi lang tayo romantic love. And that's why F. Scott Fitzgerald says there are all kinds of love in this world, but never the same love twice. So if you appreciate love in that context, you do not necessarily look at love as something singular, but a process, but as also a journey and part of your life. Now, how then do we, see the different types of love? One of the known researchers for love is Elaine Hatfield and Rapson, who defines love in 2 types. One would be the passionate love, which is the state intense of longing for union with another. There is the companionate love, which is affection and tenderness we feel for those whom our lives are deeply intertwined. Ito yung gusto natin parang forever natin. And for those who are taking up psychology, very popular yung concept of the triangular theory of love, which I still like to use. Robert Sternberg, who is a known psychologist studying also love, defines it in this in this triangular model. So take note that there are three elements that creates what we call the consummate love, the ever after, so to speak. One would be intimacy. It's how you know someone well enough. The passion is where there is physical attraction, sexual consummation, there's that romance, and finally the commitment, which is the decision to be with that person. So that's what we all strive for eventually. And then there are the various types taking into consideration these elements. If it is just intimacy, I know someone, you just like that person, that's liking from that aspect of love. There is romantic love, wherein there is passion and intimacy, and yet you don't necessarily commit to one another. So, pwede dito yung mga friends with benefits. Okay. There is also infatuation, where you feel strongly about someone, you have a crush on someone, you feel so attracted to them, you dream about them, and yet you don't get to know them. You haven't had that physical connection with them. There is possibility of passion and commitment without knowing a certain person, and this is what we call fatuous love. This pretty much where whirlwind romances come in, and this is where they say, okay, love at first sight, I don't know you, and this is the prototype couple here would be Romeo and Juliet. And finally, what is an empty love, which is primarily commitment. Commitment wherein it becomes somehow a desire to be in a certain relationship, similar to our transactions where we provide service to one another. And finally, you have your companionate love, which assumes that at a certain point in our lives, from a consummate love standpoint, where you have intimacy, passion, commitment, in your twilight years, you reach a certain point that the passion dies down because of certain limitations physically. You can no longer have sex because of the body doesn't allow it anymore, but you still maintain that intimacy and commitment to stay together. And try to imagine yourself, if you are in a relationship right now, where do you find yourself in this spectrum? Think about it. Now, when we talk about the science of love, from a basic standpoint, we start first with the dirtier parts, which is really biology. So we always ask this to medical students as to how do we connect certain areas of what organ systems are responsible for certain certain processes that's happening to our body. So maybe you can type it in the chat box. Can we see when we talk about urinating, which specific you know body organ is responsible for that? When we breathe, what specific body organ is responsible for that? When we think, what specific body organ is responsible to that? And even when we love, what specific body organ is responsible for that? So I think if you look at it very simply and plainly, when we talk about urinating, we usually refer to the kidneys. When we breathe, we usually refer to the lungs. When we think, we usually refer to the brain. And when we love, contrary to popular culture, and I think most of us would know this now because it's more common knowledge, it's no longer about the heart, but it still remains in the brain. And when we teach, one of the things that we learn in medical school is what is supposedly the end organ of a certain function. And the brain is the end organ of love. It is an organ of behavior. And believe it or not, that is your largest sex organ. So how let's take a peek of this largest sex organ. So there are various parts of the brain that was responsible for creating love. And maybe, I mean, like this part called the prefrontal cortex, responsible for forethought, for judgments, like you think before you do. You have the temporal lobe, which is responsible for memory, your mood stability. Um, this parietal lobe is responsible for sensory processing, directions. The occipital lobe, responsible for visual processing, what you see. And going deeper, I'd like to highlight what we call the deep limbic system, which is primarily emotional. This is our emotional center. So, from a developmental standpoint, growing up, that's why love is appreciated also from a developmental level, that our brain also develops. Growing up, our prefrontal cortex is not as developed, and you actually have a larger limbic system. So especially with what we call the amygdala. And this is why when we are younger, we are more emotionally dysregulated. You act primarily on impulse, primarily on your emotions. So to a certain extent, I usually am opposed to that phrase of parents and elderly who say, ano bang alam mo, bata ka pa. Hindi mo alam ang pinagsasabi mo, bata ka pa. And especially when you are being, talked about with love, parang hindi totoo yan, bata ka pa. It's only because they feel that your decisions are not well thought of. And as you grow older, there is what we call pruning. So, kumbaga, nag-a-adjust. So you suddenly have a larger prefrontal cortex, so it's easier to think things thoroughly, and your amygdala somehow prunes to, a little bit, it becomes a little bit smaller in order for it to be more regulated when it comes to your feelings. So simply put, the back part of the brain takes in and perceives the world and determines what is sexy to us, and the front half integrates this information. So it's the interconnections that's important to build this network and build that feeling of love. Now, so let's go deeper into the science of love, and let's talk about chemicals. Chemicals. And when we say chemicals, one of my close friends, dear friends, talked about how love can also be appreciated from the chemical level. And if that was the case, sabi niya sa akin, hindi ba chemical imbalance ang love? So pwede rin siyang gamutin, so to speak. So in certain ways, yes, that is possible from a theoretical standpoint, but of course, in practical perspectives, there are certain ways to, modulate that feeling that you are experiencing. That's why if it is from a pathologic standpoint, ibig sabihin, illness yung pagmamahal mo, there are certain medications that can address that, believe it or not. So let's talk about love and the chemicals are surrounding love from a stage standpoint. So what are the stages of love? You start off with lust, then attraction, then attachment. So let's go through it. Simply put, when we talk about lust, it's really that sexual attraction and the specific part of the brain that I was talking about that drives lust is primarily the amygdala. It controls emotions and motivations, and it's more activated in men, especially when they're viewing something sexually stimulating. And the chemicals responsible for this are our sex hormones, primarily the testosterone and estrogen. And this also begs the question, like, when we start with lust, how do we choose our partners? Um, we are also driven by certain, factors to dictate what it is that is attractive to us. One would be your pheromones. So there are driver pheromones. So there's a certain scent that activates our brain that makes us more attracted to a certain individual. There is also, of course, our preference in appearance. That's why we can't simply look at the process of loving from a simple biological standpoint, because there is also the psychological and social aspects to it that dictates what is attractive to us and unattractive to us. And that is why sometimes when we are attracted to someone, some of our friends, dear loved ones, would tell us, bakit mo siya nagustuhan? Eh, ang pangit-pangit naman niya, you know? And finally, there's a thing called the major histocompatibility complex, which allows us to somehow mate from a biological standpoint to create ideal offsprings. And this is something that we usually use in transplantation. And what happens when we transplant an organ is we have to match it specifically to your body type, and if otherwise it will be rejected. And one of the factors that they use is the major histocompatibility complex. This also ensures that when you marry someone and you create offsprings, you would create ideal healthy offsprings, so not rejected. And how is this also tested in our lives? And it is primarily in the anatomy of what we call a kiss. And this is such a wonderful photo of how a kiss can be so powerful. Even just looking at this photo, it stirs up a lot of emotions for us. And going deeper into what goes into a kiss is that it literally becomes the most sensitive, you know, um, sensitive um, um, test to whether or not that person is something that we can proceed with. This is what we call a sensory homunculus from the medical term. And this is mainly a representation of our senses, like how sensitive certain areas of the bodies are. Now, the bigger that part is, the more sensitive it is. And fascinatingly enough, the genitals have small representation, which means it's not as sensitive compared to the lips, which is what we use when we kiss. The major histocompatibility complex is also transferred when we kiss one another because of that saliva exchange. And this is why you can somehow have that taste test na try, sabi nga nila, natikman mo kung okay o hindi yung magiging potential partner mo. And I think that's a wonderful way of appreciating how important kissing is also in building long-term relationships. Now, the next stage would be attraction. So you felt that, intense fire of being you want to be, you are sexually attracted to that person. And then the attraction phase is truly the love struck phase, wherein these chemicals, specifically dopamine, wherein you have that rush, you're so happy. And then you have norepinephrine, which gives you that extra boost of energy to be with that person. So this is where, like, somehow the honeymoon phase comes in. And then there's the serotonin, wherein the happiness is sustained. And take note that serotonin is what is implicated also in clinical depression. So when you are heartbroken, serotonin is driven down. So that becomes one of those areas where we explore if there's a need to upregulate serotonin through medications or simply through psychotherapy. And finally is the attachment phase, wherein you have the longer lasting commitment, where couples bond, and as they go on, they have children. And there are two hormones implicated in that, primarily oxytocin and vasopressin. Now, oxytocin is usually released during childbirth, but we have the capacity also to access oxytocin from, at the very least, when we hug one another, that's why one of the things that has been missing in our lives in terms of connections is embracing someone. This pandemic has taken taking that away from us, from physically connecting with someone. And it's actually released by both sexes during orgasm, and it actually promotes bonding when adults are intimate. That's why, when mothers breastfeed, it cements the bond between mother and child. And finally, vasopressin. This hormone is important controller in the kidney, but it also has a role in long-term relationships. And this has been found in what they call a prairie vole experiment, where prairie voles mate for life. And what they did is, when they took out the vasopressin in the prairie voles, they started to leave their mates, and the mates were left helpless, especially the female mates, and they were at risk for being attacked by predators. So, having to take that and appreciating that, the question then is love worth it? I mean, through all the, having to see that, it can be a little bit tiring. It's also high risk, and sometimes the rewards are not necessarily as ideal. But believe it or not, loving has its health benefits, and that gives us the motivation to continue loving. At the very least, what they say is that there is no studies, no research that confirms that you know um, new love, budding love, romance, intense, passionate love has health benefits. What they found to be, beneficial from a health perspective is long-lasting and consistent love. So, what did they find? If you are in a loving relationship that is consistent, stable, you have fewer doctor's visits. Why? You're less stressed. You you have less depression and substance abuse because you have less problems with the relationships that you're in. Your blood pressure. I mean, if some of you are in love and always in a relationship but are always fighting, diba? Sabi nila, tumataas ang presyon ko sa inyo. And if you have a healthy, loving relationship, you have lower blood pressure, you have less anxiety, and in a way, because you are constantly flooded by good hormones, serotonin, for instance, you have natural pain control. And of course, when you are in a healthy, loving relationship, you have better stress management. your immune system is better, you have fewer colds, you have a faster healing because you have less inflammatory substances in your body, so the healing is better, and you are expected to have a longer, happier life when you are in love. But this pandemic somewhat challenged our relationships, and especially now, um, the relating and finding romance in the pandemic becomes a challenge. One would be balancing, of course, intimacy and autonomy. What does that mean? So, when you are in a relationship right now, especially in this pandemic, if it's when they explored relationships that started versus existing in this pandemic, one of the things that they found out is that, for the newer relationships, this they actually rose up to the challenge. The ones that were more challenged by this pandemic are those who are existing. Why? When, for instance, they were in a relationship where they usually get to see each other often, and when the pandemic happened, they have limited opportunities to see each other. That became a problem. For those who were staying together, it also became a problem because they were trying to balance being together all the time. So, um, at one point you are close, that's intimacy, but also you want to maintain your sense of individuality, so that becomes a little bit challenging. Of course, when you adapt to communicate and support one another, during the pandemic, the communication styles have shifted. For those who are not living together as a couple or building a relationship, you have shifted to online communication, which is not necessarily easy to navigate for some. And you have to make certain adjustments. And even supporting one another in this pandemic can be challenging. Like, for instance, if you are expected to balance school and the relationship of having to see each other, because now the restrictions have eased up. Syempre, it's still an effort to still see each other because it's also a production number, having to maintain minimum health protocols, figuring out where to have to go to a date. So that becomes also challenging. And of course, managing our own feelings. I mean, being in this pandemic has really stirred up a lot of issues. And one of the things that was raised here is, in this relationship, being in a pandemic, just by not being together, that distance, that physical distancing, how then can we express physical love, especially if that is your physical touch, if that is your love language, and you start questioning, the relationship because you start to have these feelings. So that is one of those things that we have to take into consideration. And finally, of course, I didn't put it here and highlight it. One of the things that we have seen is, this pandemic has also increased the issues of those living in abusive relationships, as opposed to pre-pandemic, where they are able to go out, get help. They are stuck with those relationships that tends to be abusive, and we have to be mindful of that. So, as they say, and of course, Dean Padua has talked about it, but I just like to highlight certain tips when mending one's broken heart, and especially in the times of the pandemic, they look at it as a double whammy. It's parang add insult to injury. Pandemic na nga, na broken-hearted ka pa. So, how can we adapt and how can we recover from this? Una-una, it's okay to ask for help. Yes, we're stuck from home, but we have to be more communicative. We have to reach out and not just expect our friends or our support group to reach out to us just because, ay, pinalitan ko na yung status ko sa Facebook from in a relationship to single, 'di ba? And then whatever it is that you post on social media doesn't necessarily assume that your friends will see it and will necessarily reach out to you. So we also have to be proactive in that. So I say that this pandemic, it challenges one's ability to be creative. So kung dati nga hindi kayo yung sanay kayo nagkikita as friends, now we have a lot of Zoom kwentuhan, chikahan. And maybe that's something that you might take into consideration and take advantage of. Sabi ko nga, that's why they shifted the health protocol recommendation from social distancing to physical distancing. You are expected to be physically distant, but not necessarily socially distant. Of course, you have to be kind to yourself. And what Team Padua was saying earlier is accepting the situation. But again, accepting is a process. It's very difficult. So accepting is also being kind, that you are accepting that you are hurt, angry, you feel sad, but you find ways to comfort yourself and look at yourself from the context of, if you see a friend who is struggling, what does that friend need? And apply it to yourself. What do you need during this time? And is this something that you can provide at that moment? Maybe, at the very least, find means to soothe yourself in that process. So it's okay to not be okay, but remember that you're not alone. And this was also highlighted by, Dean Padua is making a clean break, not necessarily just a social media break. It's just basically putting distance between you and that relationship. I've been practicing also treating clients with substance abuse problems. And, one of the things that we start off when we treat substance abuse is detoxification. So you put distance between you and that toxic substance. And that's the same with a relationship. Put distance between you. Stop stalking them, unfriend them, delete their numbers. It helps. Because the more that you retain that contact, it's more difficult for you to move forward in the relationship. Not necessarily move on, but moving forward with your life, because you are still falling back, defaulting on clinging to that relationship rather than moving forward from that relationship. And of course, it's okay to find distractions. One thing that we have now in this pandemic is the gift of time. Time in a way where, yes, for all of you who are in college, there's so many things that you're being asked to do in a way that is a gift, because you get distracted from the breakup. Also, with this pandemic, we are given that opportunity to stop, pause, and reflect, and find ourselves in this process. Because when you're in a relationship, sometimes you get lost in that relationship and you are struggling to find yourself once again. And because of the physical distancing, it's so hard to be soothed by others. So one of the things that we encourage is to be your own soothing system. When we miss hugging, being hugged by friends, being caressed by someone we love, and we try to encourage self-soothing by finding certain practices such as soothing touch, you know you know feeling your cheeks, something as simple nga. And now, because of the pandemic, we keep using alcohol. I recommend everyone to have lotion. So the simple act of rubbing lotion in our hands and just focusing on that can be also a self-soothing practice, and it helps regulate one's emotions. And appreciate that healing isn't a linear process. What Dean Padua was saying earlier is that we don't know when we'll be healed, but definitely you will have to heal eventually. But remember that just because you have moved forward doesn't necessarily mean it's a simple uphill process. There will be ups and downs. And the pandemic can possibly delay the healing process because we don't have the same coping strategies that we used to have before. As opposed to before, it's easy for us to go out, travel, go out with friends, watch a movie, eat out, or even go shopping in the mall. We have to adjust and become more creative in how our healing plan comes to be. Now, I think the next question here is how do we rise up to this, you know, challenges of love? And one now renowned psychologist who is an expert on relationships has studied what we call the sense of romantic competence, and she highlighted that she describes it as the capacity for people to function and adaptively it's the capacity for people to function adaptively in their romantic lives. That means they become more competent in loving, and it applies to all stages of the relationship process, regardless of the status and regardless of the relationship type. And what she found out in her research is that the greater romantic competence is, the greater security they have in relationships. They have a healthier relationship in decision making. They are more adaptive in social support in relationships. The ability to they're able to express positive feelings towards their partners, and there's better conflict resolution and fewer symptoms of depression and anxiety. Remember that all is fair in love and war, as they say, that no one is exempt from the pains of being in love. I'd like to just clarify the study that Dr. Dean Padua has mentioned about suicide, that suicide is prevalent on both genders, male or female. That's the same equally. It's just that we have more deaths by suicide in the male population as opposed to female, but statistically we have more female patients or people in the female population who attempt suicide. So this doesn't necessarily demean the act of suicide just because one didn't die over the other, because at the end of the day, the risk of dying is there. So I think this is why we do teach skills in how to be more competent in loving so that we don't reach that point. And what are these skills? The three skills that are highlighted, and what Dr. Davila would do is that she would conduct romantic competence workshops to develop these skills in individuals. And she did this in college students and found out that those who went through this workshop had better handling of their romantic relationships. So one would be the three skills are insight, mutuality, and finally emotion regulation. So let's briefly go through that. And I know I'm running out of time, so I want to spend some time talking to everyone in the audience as we have our Q&A. When we talk about insight, it specifically means that you are aware, you are able to understand, and you are able to learn. So very important in any relationship is that you know who you are so that you don't get lost along the way in the relationship. You are allowed to compromise in a relationship, but not lose yourself in the relationship. So you know yourself better, you know the same things about your partner, you anticipate positive and negative consequences with your actions, and you learn from your mistakes. So it's that's the beauty of insight. Now it's a process. I mean, as a psychiatrist, I mean, we ourselves went through self-discovery. We had our time in the chair, as they call it, or the couch, where we get analyzed ourselves. So it doesn't mean that you get fully analyzed just because you went to therapy. It's a matter of it being a process. Now, after that, we talk about mutuality. What is the next skill? Mutuality is both people have needs and both are important. But again, you will have to communicate these needs in a clear, direct way, so that you can optimize the 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 ability to get your needs as a couple. You should be willing and able to meet your partner's needs, but again, it has to be come from a from a point of compromise. One of the things that is understood about love is that it's a management process. um, you have to factor that both sets of needs into the decisions to make your relationship a healthy relationship. And the final skill I'd like to make a pitch for is, you know, you regulate your feelings in response to the things that happens in your relationships, in your relationship life. When you practice this, you try to be calm when you're upset and keep things that happen in your relationship in perspective. It's so easy to get upset without having to, analyze the first two skills, which is insight. Is it really worth fighting? And mutuality, where are we both meeting our needs if I explode? And emotion regulation entails tolerating uncomfortable feelings rather than acting impulsively on them. One of the, again, things that I was highlighting in one's development is that when we're younger, we act more on our impulse because of our brain. And when we're older, we start to become more um, level-headed, as they say. You think before you act. And finally, emotion regulation entails that you maintain self-respect and commitment to your needs, even when difficult things happen in your relationship. So, as I say, think with the end in mind. Now, remember that these three skills work simultaneously, not necessarily one over the other. So, you develop this together because they complement each other. So when we are able to develop these skills in our lives, we we lead we eventually lead happier lives in our relationships. So as we end, I'd like to talk about how the Beatles once said that we cannot overstate the song that they say love is all you need. But they certainly did have a point. And when they asked, "Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?" The answer is definitely yes. And with that, thank you and happy Valentine's.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. And thank you again to Dean Padua. So that was very enlightening. I think with all these things that we know about love, basically, I think that's one of the questions. If you can control already those urges that you have during, if you are there, if you know already these information about heartbreak, about love, will it help you control those urges you have when it comes to love? If you disregard the age, like you'd say probably a young person knowing all these things, will it help them guided when it comes to the relationship? Dr. Ron or Dean Padua?
Yeah. So you're saying that these things would help them guide. Yeah, yes, I believe so.
Stop them. It will help them not to be reckless when it comes to love. Normally, for younger people, it's against all odds, diba? When it comes to love. But when you attend these kinds of talks, and will it help them realize that, okay, there should be brain? Because minsan, it's easy to say, oh, use your brain. But it's difficult when you're there already.
Yes, of course it is. But just like Dr. Ron, if you're sick, you always need prescriptions. Yeah, I think there must always be this prescription every now and then. I think not only for young people, but for young and adult alike. But of course, adults are expected to be more level-headed, to be able to arrest challenges or issues or concerns. But definitely, I think this would help because it would really enlighten us. That's why I said it's a prescription. You always need prescriptions like this. And just like if you take, Dr. Ron, if you take your medicine, it's not only one time, big time. You really have to pull through. Like, for example, you have to take this for 1 month, or then you have to have your therapy. So it's an ongoing process.
Thank you, Dr. Padua. Dr. Ron?
Sorry. I think I missed the question. I'm having audio
Yes,
problems.
how, with all this information, would it be easier for us to, sorry, I don't belong in the young generation, for the younger ones who are, the urges, it's the type of love that they experience, especially the first love, they think it's against all odds, everything with emotions. But knowing all these, would it help them stop or at least consider engaging in these kinds of relationships?
Yes.
Or will they still be blinded with love?
Well, I think it's a matter of working together. I think it's very easy to just give information and assume that people will accept information. Remember that we are also living in a generation where the truth can be twisted to one's personal agenda. So this is where we're not only dealing with a pandemic, but we're also dealing with disinfodemics. There's a lot of fake news available to us. So it's not enough that we just tell them. We have to support them, as social support dictates. And I like to espouse the practice of what we call community resilience. We all will get through together, and assuming that because we are of a certain status, like I'm the doctor and I tell you, okay, that's wrong, I am not assuming that you will immediately follow suit. Just because you're the professor and you tell them, that's not the right way of doing things, they're not necessarily going to go to that. You have to go down to their grassroots, appreciate where they're coming from. I usually say, yes, I get it why you are feeling this way. You feel so attracted and find it very difficult to move forward from this relationship because you've invested yourself in that person's life. You've invested a part of yourself with that person. But it's also discussing, is it really still worth it at this point in time? And make them feel that they're supported nonetheless. Because once you start invalidating them very early, wala ka, bata ka lang, di ba? You lack the opportunity to bring them to the brighter side, di ba? That's why whenever we deal with conflict, it's not easy to sway them to your side when you antagonize them. Be the ally first, then you can help them move forward.
If I may just add, Teacher Petra, it's just what Dr. Ron is saying. I think, empathy matters. Because if we really say, okay, you have done wrong, you should not have done that, or you should like that. That's already I don't know. There's already antagonism in the first
Well,
place.
as they
Yeah.
say, it's judgment, di ba?
Yes, yes. It's
So
already
the
judgment.
idea in helping someone, you know, find the love that they deserve is ultimately putting it from the context of compassion. I've had this long discussions with my friends, how, especially the frontliners when they get burned out, and I say, you know, it's the struggle here is not to be. Of course, I am going to be counterculture here, Dean Padua, but
Yeah.
what I espouse and advocate now is compassion over empathy, because when you are empathic, get yourself, you drown in the process of helping, because empathy is feeling what the other is feeling,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
compassion is, I feel you but I want to help you.
yeah. I think
And
after that, no, I think after that, no, aside,
diba?
it's really compassion would
Oo.
come
So it
after. Yeah.
fuels you to continue helping, because I think for our audience, di ba, very common yung, ay, masyado kang negative, negatron ka. Di ba? So your friends will tend to stay away from you kasi you're such a negative person. Hindi na kita ma-tolerate kasi yung wala ka nang ginawa kundi pag-usapan yung lungkot mo
Okay.
dahil sa breakup mo o yung problema mo sa relasyon
Yeah.
mo.
I
Di
think
ba?
yes,
But
listening
when you-
should come in first. No, like what? Okay, Saint Benedict says, you listen with the ear of your heart. So I think
Yeah.
listening with the heart, there's, aside from empathy, what you're saying is there's already compassion.
Yes.
Thank you. Another question. He wants to remain anonymous. If love is related to the brains, is it conclusive to say that love is more of the intellectual interest, quote unquote, rather than to the emotional aspect of love? Ibig sabihin niya, is it the advice that most people would say, mag-isip ka nga, is true?
One of the things that we have to appreciate that love has been so romanticized and of course appreciated from such an abstract perspective. That's why they separated that. Oh, you think with your heart, not think with your head, di ba? But it's all in the head. So it's really an interplay. Now we become emotional at a certain point when we think. So that's what we call the emotional mind. And then we're trying to strike that balance between the emotional mind and the rational mind, di ba? Is it rational for you to be doing this? You're killing yourself over that person, di ka na nakakatulog dahil dun sa very toxic relationship that you have. Is it rational? And the idea is to bridge that gap, so it's not necessarily dividing the two but helping them work together, and the middle ground is what we call the wise mind. So we always ask ourselves very quietly, and usually we help clients with that. And I think this is where Dean Padua was saying, prayer is so helpful. Part of the approach now from a medical standpoint is to incorporate spirituality in the care that we provide for people. And regardless of what religious sect you belong to, spirituality transcends that. So that quiet space that you have between you and something higher, you get the answers that you need. And of course, apart from the answers, you have to also act on this and let people in, as they say. You're not alone. I mean, this pandemic has shown us that we cannot go through this alone.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. Another question, who also wants to remain anonymous. How do you date during the time of the pandemic? So what would be the advices? What is the best way for you to meet people? For both.
I'd like to let Dean first answer, and I will
Okay.
ma-violate ko ang student manual.
Okay. Actually, that's really a challenging concern now, no, on how you go dating. You know, like I have a son, and my son told me, Okay, if I'll get out from this pandemic, I'm very, very old already. How could I have a girlfriend? So he was asking me about that one. So I also was dumbfounded. Okay, how could you have a girlfriend right now? Because some would really be okay. Again, no, depends also on maturity, and maturity does not come with your chronological age. No? So like I told him, okay, Dr. Ron could help me with this one later on. They have reunions. So they have reunions, they have high school reunions. And now, of course, because it's pandemic, so everything is virtual. I told him, okay, go and join reunions. And then go and, but it's virtual. It's okay. At least you would know, this is the girl that I like, and so on and so forth. And you cannot do anything now, but mostly purely online. That's really what Dr. Ron was saying a while ago. That's really a big challenge. Even what we're doing now, it is more engaging if we're on face to face. But we've got to make the most of what we have right now. And later on, we're going to have that limited face to face, and that would even, I think, substantiate the online thing that you saw from this girl or from this boy. And they said 1001 ways to skin a cat. So I think, but it's not really Doc Ron, virtual dating, but I think this time it's more of getting to know thing in which you, because I think even in online you bring your personality. As what I'm saying, you can fake it for a while, but while you're always talking, you would see, this girl is like this. Okay, these are her mannerisms. Okay, even already just saying, okay, we'll talk at 6 o'clock in the evening, and you're waiting in Zoom at already 7 o'clock. The girl is not there or the boy is not there. For me, that's already, if there are some valid excuses, but it's always like that. Okay, time is really very important if that is your consideration. Okay, she would make herself beautiful, or she would always be on guard and not going to say. At least you could already, although that might be superficial, you could already have some impressions already. And maybe by the time that you meet face to face, so okay, this is not the impression that I've seen from her, or this is not the impression I've seen from him. So I thought he's like this. But at least you already have built up something. It's like there's already a connection, though online. There is something like Teacher Margel, and of course Teacher Petra, you can connect with this one. We teach our foreign students online, but more or less we already have a feel of them. Right? We already have a feel of them. Okay, this person is like this. Although, of course, that could be a flimsy inferences, but at least you already have built something, little by little. It's like you're growing a plant. It's not like Dr. already have roses. He already had planted the roses only last night, and it grow like that. So it's not that. I think even with online now, you can manage to quote unquote know the person, even just a bit of the person. I don't know. Doc Ron would, I think, would be would have and would say more about this one.
Well, admittedly, it's challenging now. I have to say, especially when I see clients who are in their college years, I would say, it's such a fascinating time, because those who came into college from the time that they were they entered college during the time of the pandemic, most of these students haven't met their classmates face to face. And remember, I mean, from a dating perspective, I mean, how can you, experiment on dating when you have limited social connections? And college is an opportunity to expand your network. For those who are going into college who didn't necessarily enjoy their high school life, Diba? It's an opportunity to reinvent yourself. Start new, diba? But some, diba, hindi naman lahat pag pumasok ng college, kasama mo kaibigan mo eh. So
Yes.
that is the challenge. So what I propose is to become more creative, and again, it takes additional effort. So you have to make the extra effort to build the social connection. I don't think that it's necessarily finding a partner that should be your first goal when you're building your network, because ultimately parang if yung goal mo lang is makahanap ng girlfriend, boyfriend in the process dahil masyado kang marupok ano you are that is potentially dangerous from your end. Now the beauty now is that online dating has been there for quite some time now. Believe it or not, as early as the 90s, meron na siya when the internet came up. So and it has been evolving. One thing that I would recommend is, of course, we don't expect the youth to do it all on their own. We have to provide opportunity for the youth to connect with one another, and this is where social gatherings that are potentially virtual could be an opportunity. Like ako, I start to meet other people through at least virtual get-togethers. One of my Tuesday habit is joining an open mic that is virtual, and then the host would talk to the audience, and then next thing you know, magkakakilala na kami, di ba? So that is an opportunity. So for a school, for a university, maybe coming up with a virtual mixer, di ba? Bringing together the students, talking to one another. It's fascinating because when I see Pet do her class, may mga requirements siya na open yung camera ninyo, you talk with one another, and then you get to know with one another, you get to know each other. So I think these are opportunities for us to provide opportunities for the youth to be in a relationship. The reality here is, as opposed to people of a certain age, ayaw ka na sabihin yung edad namin, but we are more comfortable being at home as opposed to the youth na, uy, pag college ka, opportunity mo na yan gumala. No? You're legal enough to go out, di ba? But, this pandemic has stifled that. Pwede na sila lumabas. So, it's really balancing that. We can't assume that the youth hindi talaga pwedeng papalabasin, because we have seen that this is detrimental also to their mental health. So the idea here is striking that balance of them going out but being able to maintain their maintain the health protocols that has been instituted. Yun yung kailangan natin laging papaalala.
Okay, so
with the online dating, I just have to make a pitch that you have to do it safely. Right now, believe it or not, ang mga relationships are also built virtually. So marami na uuso ngayon yung if you're playing games, you form a team na online games, and then they become couples. But you have to be careful that the virtual space is not necessarily the same as the face-to-face. So take the necessary precautions and open up to someone who's a little bit older and wiser so that you can find guidance, kasi sometimes very common ngayon ang catfishing, mask fishing na nga ngayon.
Yes.
So be safe. That's very important.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. Can we do like fast talk? There's a question here for Dr. Ron. Please share to us how family, friends, and media influence our idea of love. Very fast so we can accommodate the others. Thank you.
Sorry, the media and family and friends.
Media influence. Yes. Family, friends, and media influence our idea of love.
Okay. Remember that our appreciation of love is primarily built also from our own experience of love. But remember, it's going back to what you want, what you don't like. It's building that preference. And remember that social media is not necessarily representative of the whole. Remember to, at the very least, and remind everyone, is to appreciate your own sense of individuality, your uniqueness. Remember that we are all valid. We are all deserving of love. and no, don't let anyone else dictate that for you.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. For the speakers, how do you know that you're ready to love again? It's always the answer that you just feel it, but how exactly?
I don't think that there's a simple answer to that, but I always say that you'll never know until you try. And then remember, there are three factors there that for you to say that you are in a consummate type of love, wherein you feel passionate at that person, you feel that you are attracted to them. There's that burning fire. There's that desire to know that person in and out. Gusto mo siyang kilalanin. And finally, there's a desire to commit to that person. So moving on or moving forward, I'd like to use moving forward more than anything, because you bring parts of your old relationship in the new relationship. So, and then you realize, hindi na siya ganun ka-effective kasi it only worked with my ex. This is a different relationship. And then you realize, next thing you know, I'm in this new relationship already. So the idea here is, once you feel that you are more emotionally stable enough, yung syempre di ka naman pwede makipag-date tapos nag-iiyak ka about your ex, di ba? Try it out. Test the waters. You don't necessarily jump from one relationship after another just because you're still reeling from that previous relationship. Start by testing the waters. Unti-unti. How does it feel? You know? And eventually, again, it's a dynamic process. You don't expect that gigising ka na lang one day, I'm ready to love again. Hindi. It's work. It's really hard work. That's why they say that love is not for the faint of heart. You have to be brave. You have to have the courage to love again.
Thank you. For Dr. Padua.
Yes. Okay, yes.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier po about red flags. Bakit po may mga taong attracted pa din sa red flags knowing na alam na nila that someone is showing the signs or the red flags?
Okay. You know, I have students before, we were talking, as professors, why is it that kids would really be goo eyes over somebody who's like a gangster type, or somebody that they could be seeing that they're already red flags and like that, but would still fall to these things. Sometimes it's also they're building images in their mind. There is that belief, this will be the guy that could bring me at the boondocks and would carry me, and he's the hunk, and even though he's like that, he will be my knight in shining armor. So that is the perception. And sometimes media could also play a very important part on these things. Like if you have a guy who's really hunk and would really just box people for you, so you feel this guy would do something worse for me. But in a Dr. Ron was saying, in a more matured mind, that's why Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. So that is what you think. This is the kind of person that I like. So that is your perception at that time. So though there are red flags, you will not see mostly the red flags. You will see the one that you inherently would like to see in that person. So this is what I like, and you identify that person from what you like. Although there could be red flags, the red flags might not be seen, although it's red. You can easily see red, but it might be overshadowed on what you think it should be. So the ideal could be something that is relative. So like, I don't know, when I was in high school, never mind, don't ask when. When I was in high school, most of my classmates, I think I was part of that group that, this guy is the hunk type and could really defend us. And although he would really be he would be known as somebody who would start trouble is that because he's our defender. So there is that perception. And then later on, isn't it, no, Dr. Ron? No? If you're already falling out of love, you can already see now. No? The blinders are now the blinders that you had before are now taken out from your eyes. Okay, this guy really looks like a gangster, or how come? How did I fall in love with this guy? But taking from that, so that could be now your point of reference. So the next time that you would like to move forward, the next time that you would like to have, again, as not saying that would like to have a boyfriend or engagement with another person, is that we have to take that into consideration now. This was the red flag that I have not seen as red before. It was all love to me. The red flag, the red there was love to me, but this red flag now, I think you have to take that into consideration already, that now we are learning also from our experience.
I think it's very difficult, and I mean, mainstream media, even social media, has influenced our
Yes,
choices
yes.
also, and has created also that fantasy that, you know, falling in love with, kasi again, ano ba ang promise of love? It's transformative. Part of us, there's a messianic complex where we'd like to be that one person who changed that person to for the better. I mean, that movie, she's dating a gangster, has
Yes,
become the
yes,
template
yes.
for us to date the bad guys. But again, there's also a part of it where you become so attracted to toxic relationships because of your own history growing up, your own psychology. And it's important that if there is that pattern, that going through one-on-one therapy helps you get out of that toxic cycle of being involved in one toxic relationship after another. Studies have shown that those who have been involved in abusive relationships tends to be re-abused after moving out of an abusive relationship. So it's important for us to be mindful and be proactive to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Shirley, Dr. Ron. We have more questions, but I will just, for those who your questions were not entertained, I took them down. I got your names. I know who you are. And I will just ask them, and I will send you an email regarding what, so may exam si Dean Padua at si Dr. Ron.
So there's dear Dr. Ron,
Dear
and
Dr.
dear
Ron.
Dr.
Yes,
Shirley.
maybe we'll do a part 2 of this one. It could be lovingly yours, and dear Dr. Padua, lovingly yours, Dr. Ron. We will have those events where mostly would be just a question and answer portion. Okay, but thank you everyone. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you to our 2 wonderful speakers. Thank you for the faculty and the team who helped us come up with this program. So before we end the event, please do not forget to input your event code. It's SK54HYR7. I will type it, and please let's be ready for our university hymn. that today's talk can help you unbreak your heart and make it start to beat again with passion. Okay, do not forget to put the event code. I've already written it in the